2, 3, 4.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Power of Music Thinking. My name is Christof Zürn, and this is the podcast for people with a musical heart and a wicked job. We're looking for stories, insights and tools from the big world of music to inspire leaders and followers to listen, tune, play and perform in whatever field you're operating. With a dedication to healthcare, my guest today is Rasa Priya. He worked in standard Western medicine as a respiratory therapist in critical care settings for more than 30 years. Now, he has followed his calling into a more holistic approach and works as a sound healer with his wife in Maui, Hawaii. Rasa shares a pivotal moment in the hospital when caring for a cancer patient and the power of human compassion. He describes the concept and advantages of sound healing, especially the vibrations behind the chanting of mantras, which are essential in his teaching of vocal empowerment, like the word Om, that besides the sound also has a healing effect on our facial muscles, creating possibilities of experiences. And Rasa also introduces us to the work of the Japanese water photographer Masaru Emoto, who visualizes different styles of music, but also words like hate, love, guilt, with his water crystals. And he explains to us how everybody can be a drummer and get involved into right and left brain stimulation to nurture creative thinking and break the molds of our limitations. Welcome, Rasa. Welcome to the Power of Music Thinking.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. And we start right with the first question, my starting ritual. It's like, what was your first sonic experience or album or musical performance that had an impact on you?
Well, my very first performance that had an impact on me was actually when I was about 7 years old, and I had started classical guitar lessons. And within a month, my teacher had me perform on stage. They thought I had some kind of gifts or whatever, so they actually had me perform on stage. And that actually really affected me. It was the first time that I had that kind of relationship. Before, I had a lot of issues growing up and I had a lot of problems. But in that moment, people seemed interested in what I was doing and what I was sharing. So that was the very first time, and that really changed my life.
But hang on, you just said after 1 month and you were 7 years old. Wow, come on, that's amazing.
Yes,
what did you do?
I played the song Malagueña, which is a Spanish guitar classical piece. And I put everything that I had. When I was growing up, I had some abuse. So for me, music was a way to really gain a place of peace, a place of self-expression without external interference. So I think I just dove in so heavily that it became a thing, and I was very dedicated and focused, and I just would put all my time there. It just seemed so heart-filling at the time. So
wow. So great. Because the question is about impact, so it sounds like it was not only impact on you, but also on the impact on others, on the audience.
I think so. I think that it showed what was possible, in that way. Like, if you just put some time and attention in a particular area, anything can be cultivated. Look at this little kid. Look at this little boy. So maybe in that way, it shared that possibility.
Wow. How was the rest of the career? So if 1 month is starting like this?
Well, it's really quite interesting. I went into playing a lot of different instruments, and growing up, here's the funny thing. When I would listen to songs, I would listen to like Led Zeppelin, all those really hard rock bands, but I could never hear the words. I only heard the music. I could never hear the words. To this day, I don't know any words to any songs. I can't, if I was to do karaoke or whatever, I would fail. I don't know words to songs. For some reason, they don't stay with me in that format. Now, when doing mantras or kirtans, that's completely different. Kirtan is the call and response form of mantra. And for some reason, that is just different for me. So
Wow. Yeah, interesting. So it's always, from my perspective, always great to hear something that's completely different than I would expect. So if you would hear a song, I'm not an English native, so I would hear some kind of lyrics, but if you would be 7 or 8, you would make it up. You just have some kind of fantasy language, and only later then you realize, oh, that's what they meant with the song. So I think there's a link that when you not native English, that you maybe are more affected by the sound, even the sound of the language and the word. In your case, you would have understood.
yes, and it's interesting because you're right. Even though I didn't hear the words, I would receive the vibration of the song, and I could tell. Well, I don't. I let me rephrase. For me, it either hit me deeply or did not. So Led Zeppelin, as an example, their musicianship, it reached me on a soul level. It was different than a lot of the stuff that I was hearing. And for whatever reason, it really communicated with me on a very deep level. And it felt like it was otherworldly.
Mm.
So that, yeah.
Mm. And frankly speaking, most of the song lyrics
Mm.
are also not so, let's say, yeah, big news or so profound. So maybe it's also more, but that's a speculation on my side. Maybe it's just more about the feel and everything that surrounds it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Rasa, could you tell us a little bit more about you? What do you do? What do you do for a living?
Sure. Well, I just retired from healthcare. I was a respiratory therapist for about 32 years, and I worked mostly in critical care settings, emergency settings, and it had it was fulfilling in certain ways, and in other ways it was a little bit stifling. In other words, um, for me, Western medicine, what we were doing in the hospital is really chasing symptoms, but we never really got to the root of things. What I do now is sound healing. I've taken everything that I've cultivated from all these years, all these interests, my hobbies, etc., my spiritual beliefs, and it's all culminated into this moment for me. And so when I retired to move into sound healing, my whole world opened up. Um, Almost in a magical sense. I mean, it sounds so bizarre because I know, a lot of us want to follow our dreams, follow our hearts. And there's a lot of, for me, there's a lot of fear surrounding that. I was making really good money at the hospital and have had my son in Montessori school. And my wife and I, we own a house, etc. So we have bills and things that we have to take care of. And to make that move from going into a steady hospital job into the unknown world of sound healing, of all things, it was scary. But when I can say that, when I did this with my wife and really focused and dedicated, everything just really manifested. We're making more money than we were when we were in the hospital. And I don't do this for money. My main interest is to help others discover themselves, who they already are. A lot of times our conditioning can confuse us. So that's what sound healing for me is all about, is just really being in service and helping those along their way.
Wow. I'm thinking about you work 32 years in healthcare, and
Yes.
I I would wonder when were the first signs of, let's say, sound healing, or let's, well, the
Mm,
other way or the other side, or it feels to me like the other side of health. When did, can you tell us a little bit more about how this works?
sure.
Because it sounds like 32 2 years and then check and then there's something else. But to take also the link with your, let's say, your first guitar performance has also a lot of sound healing quality to me.
No, for sure. Well, this happened. This actually happened about 20 years ago in the hospital. There was a young man, and he was dying of HIV. He had contracted AIDS, and was going through that process, and he was definitely on his way out. I got really close to that family for whatever reason. They were kind of hippie-ish, naturalists, and I just really appreciated who they were as people, and I got close with their family. So we were all seated in a circle around this gentleman as he was passing. And I remember, we were all touching him, had our hands on his legs, arms, etc. And I was just experiencing a lot of love. That simple. Just I was feeling so much love for him, compassion, empathy. And he looked right over and at me and said, and here he is with all his family members, but he looked at me and said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I really feel it." And I was like, whoa, it just really blew my mind. And I started thinking back to when my grandmother would put her hand on my stomach when I was a little boy, like 3 or 4 years old. I even had to go to the hospital for this, but she would comfort me with her touch. So that moment really prompted curiosity. I wonder how much is available, how much healing power is available through our energetics, through our touch, through our vibration, through our kindness, those kind of things. And, we're so in the hospital, we're focused on labs, giving medicines, all these chemicals, etc. But what about just human compassion, love, kindness, softness, connecting and touching with someone, just letting them know, hey, I am here for you. I'm your brother. I love you. I'm right there with you. How beautiful. And so from that moment, and they even pulled me aside. Because we ended up in ICU and we had lit incense or something like that. We were burning something, and they pulled me in. They said, what are you doing? So I had to explain myself, and they asked me not to do those kind of things. But I was really attracted to that. So yeah, that's an incident that happened in the hospital that prompted further investigation.
I can imagine. And also the touch and touch of the body, because sometimes people say sound is touching from a distance. So touch from a distance is something like, if you can't be close, you even can touch someone. And also in the pandemic.
Yes. And, I can say, fast forward to this moment, my wife works for an eating disorder clinic. And in there are a lot of people, a lot of the clients, they're very stressed. They have a hard way of regulating emotions. They don't see the world the same way we do. I had no idea. But my point is this, the beauty of sound healing is this: because it has no distinguishable, it doesn't have English. What we do does not have English words. So it's mostly felt as vibrations, as sounds. And what we're noticing is, it helps the clients get out of the mind, the mental pictures, the mental patterns that they have, and really allows them to receive in a way that just goes right past their mental filters, So that's been extremely effective with that particular population. And yeah, I just wanted to say that it's been extremely effective with that particular population because, in my opinion, they get to bypass those mental filters, all that noise of their conditioning and I can't and self-esteem and all those things, and simply just be and receive.
Also with the mantra, interesting, mantra is not in English. It's a little bit something that we just talked before. So it's not the meaning of the word, but the sound of the word.
Yes, it's the sound of the word. And I do want to say something about mantras. I just wrote this article about mantras. A lot of times, like when we say the mantra Om, we hear this nice sound, Om, okay, and we don't think too much of it, or maybe some of us don't think too much of it. But what are we actually doing? the way that the sounds are created, we are actually taking very distinguishable muscles from our face. We are articulating them in such a way. Our tongue is being curved. Our breath is affected. The way that we inhale and exhale, when we say the word Om, make a breathy exhalation sound. So what does that all mean? Well, it says in the Vedas that these particular things are very specific. They're not random noise. We are making gestures with our face to form particular sounds. Sometimes our tongue touches the roof of our mouth, and in that, it creates possibility of experience. That's why they say it can be a deeper spiritual experience if you do mantras or meditate or whatever, but the sound itself is so powerful. So it's not the word, it's the vibration behind it and the articulation of forming that mantra with the breath influences our experience in various ways, depending on where we're situated. So, yeah, and even further, are you familiar with the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto? He's a Japanese water photographer. He photographs water crystals, and what he's done is he's taken various sounds and revealed their shape. Like he'll have pop music, rock music, etc., and then he photographs these water crystals, and they configure in a way that's very interesting. His work is all over the internet, so it can be seen by anybody, YouTube or whatever. Even words, like he'll say hate, love, guilt, and those words affect the formation of those water crystals. Okay, so if you can imagine, we're mostly water. We're mostly made up of water. Sound affects all of us in such a unique and profound way. It's different than all the other senses in that it doesn't have to go to our higher brain centers to be perceived. It can be directly perceived, without going through the higher brain centers. So yeah, there is so much to sound. And I think right now in this time period where we're all searching and looking for answers, etc., trying to find ways to navigate through this crazy time, sound is really emerging as a healing agent, as a way of self-discovery, So I'm really excited about these times, even though they're so difficult for most of us.
Yes.
I think there's some really good hope out there, and sound is definitely one of those ways.
Yeah, when you just described the word Om and described what the tongue is doing and the face, and I think everyone can stop the recording for a second and experience this now and saying Om and really understanding, oh, wow, my tongue is not very dense and not very stiff in the mouth, what sometimes happens if you're under stress. But if you say that holy word, it's everybody can experience this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there other mantras that people could do without knowing the meaning, but understanding the effect of it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of the mantras actually we don't know in depth. Like even there's one mantra, the Gayatri mantra, that in some circles that's considered super sacred, and that's not spoken in public in some circles. It's revered so much. Here in the West, it's showing up in pop kirtan. In other words, a lot of the kirtan leaders, the musicians, they're sharing it openly. And that's okay. I mean, I do that myself. But as far as understanding the meaning, it's like anything else, right? You can talk about any spiritual topic, and there's just layers and layers and layers of information and meaning, almost infinite. The deeper we go, the more that there is to uncover, and we discover the nature of the infinite, that it's just so vast that there's no way we can consume it with our minds. So So yes, we do not need to understand the mantra to receive its effect. And while you're on that note, I also wanted to say something about vocal empowerment. It's something that I teach in the sound healing. So for me, when I teach vocal empowerment, I try to teach people to make sounds that are innate. What's coming from you? What do you want to express? Uniquely you. And if you can get out of the way of your mind, of your judgment, of trying to sing good or worrying about what other people think, and just make a noise, and it can be as silly as blah or whatever it is, but try that, you know. If people can sit with themselves and be free enough to make that sound, watch what happens. Your creativity expands. You're merging your right and left brain. You're being open to receive without judgment of your mind, and then letting it be expressed. In that moment, you are a channel. You are channeling creativity. And, you know, there's a lot of science right now. Greg Braden and those guys, a lot of guys from the Gaia channel, they're talking about, you know, divinity likes to express itself through creativity. So when we can act as agents for the creative process, you know, it's like we're channeling.
Mm.
And that's why a lot of times the movies are showing us things before the actual manifestation of a thing. You know, it's giving us ideas and things to think about, deeper subject as well, not just silliness, but there's a lot of silliness out there. But you know, there are some shows that really prompt us to seek and to go deeper. So I'm really excited about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. And it's just so freeing and liberating to make a sound, make your own sound, because each one of us are so unique. And if we can get out of our ego and be vulnerable, wow, there might be something there for us.
Maybe a silly comment. It's also a little bit like singing in the shower, isn't it? Where you think you're alone and you're making noises. So if listeners are now thinking about, oh wow, interesting, how can I start with it? So I would say, give it a try under the shower, or maybe in the car if you're in a traffic jam, and try to feel
Yeah, absolutely.
traffic.
And don't worry about your neighbor over there thinking you're looking crazy. That's the hard part, right? Getting out of our way of thinking that we're going to be silly or being seen as silly or something.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about how can people, if that's what we're talking about, resonates with other people, how could they start? It's a good start to read a book. You just mentioned Greg Braden and the water crystals. So maybe we collect them and also put them in the show notes as a service to the listener. But is there something, a tip or something that you would say, if you're interested in this, go there? What would it be?
Oh, okay. Well, I actually have a YouTube channel, and if people go to YouTube and search Rasa Priya, Rasa Priya, or Maui Sound Healing, they'll find my content. And in that channel, I speak about all kinds of things. I speak about the heart chakra opening. I provide a lot of content, different types of sound healing, different types of vibration, a lot of different information. I even have one video that really shows you how any one of us can enter into this practice. And we just have to really get out of the way of our minds. So that YouTube channel does have that kind of information. And beyond that, you know, there is no right or wrong with this. This is really about each one of us. So if you can sit in a quiet space and make a sound, whether it's with a bowl or a tin, or put on a drone of some type, you know, maybe it's just a synthesizer key or a piano key or something that sustains a long note, and just start exploring. You know, the key is not how beautiful you can make the sound. That is not the focus. The focus is how much you can discover about your own self, and you have to get out of your own judgment in order to do so. You have to be free of your own self ridicule. You know, you have to get out of the way of that. and then just allow and see who you are and what wants to come through to, through your life, through your being, through your beautiful uniqueness. So yeah, these are exciting times right now. And especially I could say for me in relationship to sound, it's just been a lot of things are just opening up and quite amazing. I have a lot of hope from what I've experienced in these last years. And, there was a time when I wasn't quite sure the direction of humanity and was a little worried, but from my own experiences, um, I have great hope now, So because I feel it and see it for myself. So, and I don't think I'm any different than anybody out there. I'm just like everyone, human stuff and trying to do better and all that stuff. So
Beautiful, beautiful. And also, yeah, you can start by yourself in just what you just said. Start with the drone or with the drone sound. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of drone sounds around us, a car, a van, or
yeah.
or the
Yes.
fridge. And instead
Yeah,
of getting
completely.
annoyed, I always get annoyed by fridges. But next time I try to tune into it and maybe make my own sound together with it.
What we're speaking about practical application and what people can do. So here's something else I teach in one of the sound healing classes. I teach drumming, and you be surprised, or maybe you won't be surprised, but you might be. There are so many people out there who say, "Oh, I can't. I'm not a musician. I can't play music. I just can't. I've never done it, and I'm not good." And I would say 100% there has not been anybody that when they actually sit down and take the time, they find their musicianship. You know, it's mostly mental filters. Oh, you can't be in time. Oh, you can't be in pitch. Baloney to all that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a perfect musician. And again, if you can tap on that drum and create a boom, a sound, you're a musician. It's not about performance. It's about you getting involved. So one of the reasons why I like drumming, using the right and left hand, because of that right and left hand, right and left brain, you get to exercise and use the right and left brain at the same time. And anytime you do that, you create more capacity for experience to receive information and process. A lot of us are so calculative. We're very left brain. We think that if we do A, B, and C, then we'll get to D. Well, that's true. And okay. And there are other things too out there that you may not need A, B, and C. You may just be able to get to D without any of it. So it goes way beyond the mechanical thinking. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned the drumming. In the last episode, I mentioned this. There's a research of two groups. One group did a drumming lesson, and the other group not. And both had an IQ test. And the one that did the drumming had better rates than the others. So that's
Wow.
already proof that there is something. Also, when we work in workshops and do some kind of mindsetters or icebreakers or however you want to call it, it's more than just being silly and just doing something
Yeah.
that you don't do. It does something with your body, like a signal from, wow, you are here and you can do and can connect with everyone to make great things together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think in these last hundreds of years that we've been really into Newtonian mechanistic thinking that things are separate and part and parcel to, just different parts. And in quantum physics, we're finding that it's quite different. We are not particles. We are actually waves and vibration, etc. Things aren't linear. They can be way beyond linear. Quantum healing is happening. You can affect if you take a photon, split it, and send it in 7 miles in opposite directions. You affect one side, one of those protons, or one of those photons, and simultaneously, the other one that got split off and sent away is affected. There is no linear there's no linear time required. It happens instantaneously. So physics, quantum physics specifically, is blowing the lid off of the old ways that we used to perceive. And it's giving us ideas of it's breaking the molds of our limitations. Many people right now are really being open and pursuing the possibilities of new ideas, new ways of relating, new ways of being.
Now that sounds very good. It resonates a lot with me, and that's also in the center of the music thinking. So it's not only music; it's that why I came up with music thinking, to take things from the musical world, like waves. Well, you could even say it's from the physical world, but let's keep it in that way, and with all these waves, the wave is always up and a down. So it's never a line. If there's a line, then it's dead. And that resonates a lot with what we're talking here at the Power of Music Thinking. Rasa, is there anything as a last question that you would like to share that we did not touch?
I think I touched on it a little bit, but I just really want to emphasize this, that, each one of us, no matter where we're situated, no matter how hard our life is, no matter how small we think of ourselves, I'm going to say, hey, challenge that. There's so much to who you naturally are. And you don't need to become something or be this and that. But if you just look inside, look who you already are, you're going to be surprised. You're going to fall in love, and it's just going to open up so much possibility. And sound is one of those ways that you can truly access different parts of who you already are and give you the practical, tangible experience and tools to help you grow. So I think that's what I wanted to say, is the power of creativity is super important and available to every single one of us. Don't let your mind tell you otherwise.
Thank you.
Definitely worth it. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much. And I like the positivity of it. So if you get on a wave, then you're already moving. Thank you very much for your insights, your positivity, and thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I love what you're doing. I love the share. It's just very helpful. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate this, because listening is one of the top leadership skills, and I feel honored about this. It is my mission to find, create, and share inspirations for meaningful collaboration based on music analogies. If you want to support this, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, or write a review on iTunes or Spotify. And more inspirations can be found on musicthinking.com. We have a blog, and you can download the Music Thinking Framework. And finally, I would love to hear your feedback. And if you need help with a business challenge, please reach out to me via email, podcast@musicthinking.com.